My name is Jerry Schreiber. I am 91 years old, and I was born in northern Minnesota, Cloquet, Minnesota. My folks, when I was a year old, they moved to Minneapolis. Now, my folks were both Polish, and they were born in a little town called Sobieski in Minnesota, right by Little Falls, Minnesota. And I used to go out there to the farm every summer, stay with one of my uncles on the farm until my dad bought the farm and I had a farm of my own. And I grew up in Minneapolis, and then my dad bought a farm for us because I always wanted to go on a farm, and it was really a nice place. It was right on a lake. We had 30 acres of lake frontage, and my dad bought it for cheap. I mean, he got 110 acres with all the farm buildings for $1,500. Payments $15 a month. And we couldn't even make a go of earning $15 a month, so we almost lost it. It had a little history there. Ma Barker had two sons, and they were bank robbers, and they wanted to look like a family. Ma Barker married this guy, and he would go drinking, and then he'd blow about how many robberies they had or whatever they did. Well, Ma Barker didn't like that. On the lake, I mean, it was so serene. You'd wake up in the morning and the sun would be bright, and you could hear the loons on the lake or ducks. We raised ducks, white pekin ducks, and there's a chain where the ducks fly south, and they follow that same route every year. And our lake was one of their stopping places. Well, one morning, I got up and went down to the lake, and it was just black with these ducks floating on the water. And I hollered. I went, "Hey!" And they all took off. They darn near blackened the sky. There were so many of them. When I was in grade school, I was in 5th or 6th grade. This one girl got up and gave a recitation about little Giorgio Washington, who was here with his Italian father, and he was trying to explain to the kid why we didn't have to go to school that day because it was George Washington's birthday. And I heard the recitation once, and I never thought about it or said it again. And then when we moved out to California, about 50 years at least later, my kids are all in the kitchen. And because it's George Washington's birthday, they didn't have to go to school. And I went out there and I said, "You know what Forsey School keeps out this holiday, my son? Well, then I'm going to tell you about little Giorgio Washington." Now, Giorgio was a little kid. He lived long time ago. He go to school for learn to read and write him name, you know. He much alike for going to school and learn hard all day. He no stay home with bad kids and play. Well, one cold day when Giorgio, he's still so very small, he leave for school, but he no show up at school at all. Oh, his pop, he get mad, and he grab a big stick, and he go out in the snow for seek the little Giorgio. And what you think he see? A kid all tangled up in cherry tree with hatchet in his hand. His papa said, "Why you bust the rule and stay away from school?" Giorgio said, "I no can tell a lie, and I thought this tree was just the size for chop, and so I cut him down, you see, just for to help my pop, and bring him home and do some good, and bring him home some wood." Oh, his pop, he no can get him mad, and he looked pleased and said, "I am so glad you take a holiday, and maybe someday by and by, you're going to be so great, you're going to be the president of this United States." Amen. And I only heard it once, Dustin.
That's pretty good.
But it amazed me.
Yeah.
Why would that come out of my head
I can't imagine.
50 years later?
Did you hear about
When I lived in Minneapolis and I was about 12 years old, I got a paper route. And my route was I had to go across a bunch of railroad tracks, and there was the flour mills were there, and it was so dark. There were no street lights back in there, and I had to go through that area. And when I'd go and collect the money for the paper at the end of the month or the beginning of the month, and I had a pocket full of change and money, and I had to walk back through that place, I was so scared. And because I just couldn't get someone to go with me, because I was a big boy, I had a paper route. And then another time, this was on over on where I used to live on 38th and 40th Avenue. We cut a tree down, and my dad was burning the branches in the back, and my dad was sawing the tree into stove-size pieces, and a bee came at me. And I was barefooted, and I ran backwards through this pile of hot ashes that my dad had raked up from burning the branches. And immediately I ran over to the sandbox. We had a sandbox there with the sand was kind of wet and cool and damp, and I packed my feet in that, and I don't have a scar on my feet today, but it was quite an experience. And so anyway, I went to high school there in Webster, and then I joined the Navy from high school, and seen a lot. I didn't win the war myself, but I saw enough to make me cognizant of what was going on. And then when I come home, my mother had already arranged who I was going to marry. She had a picture of Marcy that she carried around in a pin, and my son is going to marry her. So when I got there, I met her the first night, and the second night I probably took her out anyway. We were married in June, and she gave me 7 kids, and all of my kids are pretty straight. I mean, I don't know of any of them that went to jail or arrested for pot, or they might have tried it, but they never got caught. But no, the reason I joined is this guy came to our high school. Any of you boys that this was in January, you don't get your diploma until June. Any of you guys want to join the Navy, and we'll give you your diploma in June. In fact, my mother had to go up on the stage and get mine. But it was war, yes. I got my ship in, I was stationed on the USS Montauk, and it was a landing ship that had a ramp in the back, and we'd lower that, and if we were hauling Marines, they could go off into the water on, well, they called them ducks and alligators. Otherwise, we had the small boats, 36 footers, and we'd go in and hit the beach, and we carried 36 Marines or one Jeep, and when we hit the beach, they would drop the ramp. These guys would get off, we'd back up, go back to the ship and get another load. At Okinawa, when we invaded there, I was in the second wave. First wave goes in, second wave, third, you know. Well, and while I was there, I was in 41 air raids in 10 days. And it seemed like we were up all the time going to general quarters. And every time a plane had come in, everybody'd shoot at it. And our ship, that's when the kamikazes first started, which were the suicide bombers. And we had one diving at our ship, and somehow they hit it with the 5-inch gun, which is a shell about that big around. And there was nothing left of it, just small pieces landed on the deck. Well, after we secured Okinawa, that was on April 1st, 1945. When the island was secured, we left, and we were headed for Japan to invade Japan. In the meantime, we dropped an atomic bomb on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and that's when the Japs surrendered. They had enough. And it took a lot of people got killed, a lot of Japanese civilians, but Truman figured a lot more would be killed if we had to invade it. I don't know, I mean, if you weren't scared, you weren't human.
Yeah.
When I wasn't trembling, I mean, I never had anything happen to me. The only thing that happened to me was I got hit right here with a piece of shrapnel that fell out of the sky. And it was sharp like a razor, and it cut me right there. I didn't even feel it. So one of the other guys, he says, "Hey, you're bleeding on your head." And I put my hand up. Yeah. And I went to sick bay, and they put a bandage over it. So anyway, let's go leave the war. My mother worked in the booze part of the cafe, and my future wife worked in a restaurant. They were right together. So I got home, I went there, and I just didn't get the welcoming home where these Vietnam vets are getting, you know. No big deal that I came home and couldn't find a job because there wasn't any, and the government gave us what we call 5220. For 52 weeks, they would pay you $20. You had to go down to another Navy person, and he paid you $20 cash every week. And I don't know how much I drew, but it was like a fortune, you know, $20. That was a lot. And I bought a house. I got married first, June 22nd, 1946. 1946. And I was married to her for 47 years. And anyway, I bought this house. It was 3 room. It was a kitchen, a bedroom, and a living room. And then we had a path out in the back that went to the outhouse. And we had no running water. We had electric lights. But we used oil to heat it in the winter. And then I couldn't get a job. I got home in February. And I was home and I got married in June. I worked with Alec, my stepfather, doing carpenter work, 50 cents an hour. And he was the lead man. He got 75 cents an hour. Anyway, after jobs, there ain't much carpentry done in the wintertime or remodeling or stuff like that. So I went to Minneapolis. My other brother-in-law was living in Minneapolis, so I was married to my sister. And he worked for Minneapolis Moline. We made tractors. So I went in there and I got a job. And that was in November. And Marcy was living in my house in Webster. That was a house by the alley, and then we owned all the land to the street out here. In fact, they got houses built on there now. And my payments were $25 a month. So I rented a house to this couple for $25 a month. So they made the payments. And anyway, I moved to Minneapolis, got a job at Moline, 90 cents an hour. And I got to be a senior core maker. We were making cores for all the castings that went in to make it a tractor. Oh, as the time passed, I went from one house or dwelling place to another, and finally I bought a house on Harriet, 3905 Harriet, and I think all the kids were with me, but we had 3 bedrooms and a bath upstairs, and front room, living room, and kitchen downstairs. And then later on, I had an addition built onto the kitchen. It was like another room because there was not enough room in the kitchen to sit down at a table. And I had benches along the walls, and the kids all slid in on those benches. And yeah, we had this place on 3905, and every winter I would build a skating rink out in the backyard, stand out there by the hour and sprinkle that water and trying to make a skating rink, which eventually I did. And then all the kids in the neighborhood used to come over there and skate, and Marcy would have cookies and cocoa for us, and Tom would play, or Mike could play hockey out there with the bigger kids, and they really had fun, I think. And Debbie, my daughter, she used to have plays in the backyard where she'd hang up a sheet and make a kind of a theater, and then she'd charge so many pins to come in there, but the kids all knew that it was a theater there because she'd get quite a crowd of kids. Half of the time I didn't know which ones were mine, but she was quite an entertainer all her life. She had been in a theater business. I was the one in the neighborhood that got the first TV. I don't know if it was colored or black and white. I think it was black and white. It was 7 inches, 7.5 inches, about that big. So I invited all my buddies. That ball game was going to be on, and I set chairs, theater style, in front of the TV. And I had all these guys over, and we sat and looked at a test pattern for a half hour. And then finally, the ball game came out, and they said, due to rain, the game has been canceled. So the guys all left, and I ate the popcorn by myself. Okay, down the basement at my house, I fixed up a party room. And I had a bar, which I made out of an old buffet. And I had a slot machine, I had a pinball machine, and I had a jukebox. And I would invite my friends over. They had to bring their own bottle because I couldn't afford the booze. But we danced with the jukebox, and they enjoyed playing the slot machine and the pinball machine. And we had many good times. One time we had a costume party. And Debbie and Donna and Carol all were upstairs in bed, we thought. We said, all right, you kids stay in bed and don't come down to the basement because go to sleep. And this one guy, Mr. Nagin, he was dressed up like a devil. And the kids, the 4 girls, I think all of them were coming down the stairs to peek in to see what we were doing. And Nagin was going up to the bathroom. And you never saw 4 kids go back to bed as fast as they did. They got really scared when the devil came up. I had 14 years that I worked for Moline and piecework. And then my sister says, you better get out of there because they're going to close that place down. I said, it takes up about 6 city blocks. You remember how big it was? We had a hospital upstairs and a machine shop and a foundry where we melted the iron. And I said, nah, that's a railroad switchyard to haul the tractors out. And she said, you better get a different job. And I didn't agree with her, but I had a friend that was on the fire department. So I went down and I took the test for firemen, police, and post office. I figured they were depression jobs. There would always be a police force, fire department, and a mail. Well, I passed all 3 of them. We went to this high school to take the test. There was 300 guys. They were taking it for firemen. And I just shook my head. I thought, I don't think I can beat these guys out. I was 34, and they were like 21. And they'd just been in school, and they were used to taking a test where I wasn't. And when they were all getting up and leaving. Here I had a whole page left to do. And I just took my time, and I went back and looked to see if I did it right. And I finally turned my paper in. And I got a card in the mail, said, "You are number 9 on the waiting list." There was going to be 34 guys going on. After you get to be older than 34, they won't take you because it screws up the retirement some way. You had to be 20 years and be over 50 to be able to retire. So anyway, I got the notice, and I got another notice that you're number 3 because of your service connection. But my dad died during that time. He never saw me being a full-blooded fireman. Well, then every day was different, you know. You go to this fire and this car accident, this suicide and everything. And finally I went to a fire on Cedar Avenue, Minneapolis. It was an apartment building that looked like the halls here, you know. And there were people in these apartments, and the cops were out in the parking lot blowing their siren. It was 2 o'clock in the morning, and they woke up a lot of people. So I was on the ladder truck, and our job was search and rescue, you know. So it was just loaded with smoke, and I went in there, and I'd take a person, and I'd share my mask with her or him. Got him on the side, and then I went back and got another one. And I got 17 of them out. We didn't lose anybody there that I know of, but the smoke was so thick that... So after that day that I helped get 17 out, I started getting chest pains. So I told my captain, and he said, "Well, go outside and sit on the curb," and I did. I had a space cigarette. He said, "I don't want you going in there no more." And it just never left. So I had Dr. Kelly. I went to him, and he says, "You know, I think you'd be better off the fire department," which would be, you could say that about any fireman. So anyway, I said, "Well, I haven't got nothing to do with that. You'd have to write a letter." So they wrote a letter, and the city doctor examined me. Well, they don't go against each other, you know. Doctor doesn't... If this doctor says you got heart trouble, and this one don't think about it, I think you do. They go with the first one. So they told me, "You're going to have to get off the fire department because you can't be a fireman no more." And I said, "Well, what am I going to do? I got 7 kids." "Well, you'll get the full pension, tax-free." The full pension meaning that if I stayed until I was 50 and had 20 years on the fire department, that's how you get the full pension. But if your time is cut short by accident or sickness or something, they automatically give you the full one. So that's what I'm getting, the full pension. I had this rubbish route because I was getting laid off at Moline all the time, and I thought I'd go into business myself. And I bought this truck for $800. I borrowed the money and bought a truck. Made it into a rubbish truck. You don't change it very much, but we used to get an old rug to cover up the load, because you couldn't get driving through city streets of Minneapolis without covering that load because stuff would be flying off. And anyway, I used to find a lot of good stuff in the rubbish. I bring it home, and the kids would go nuts over it. They all had scooters and tricycles and wagons, and one day I bought Marcy a bouquet of flowers, and I had it on the television. And Tom, the youngest, he said, "Where you get them, Dad, in the rubbish?" Remember? And anyway, I don't know if Debbie ever rode on the route with me. Dustin never did. He was too young.
He wasn't born yet?
No. Anyway, the kids would ride on my route. They used to call it the rag route. I think I had about 300 customers. When I got hurt on the fire department, I couldn't be caught working because they were paying me, you know. I was disabled. So I hired another guy, Jack, and he ran it for a couple months. And then when I sold it, I got $35,000, which I put in the bank. And anyway, then that's what kept me. I had more money that I made on the rubbish truck than I did on the fire department. I always had I had a big purse with my change in it. And I always had that with me. And guys would come up to me on the fire department, "Can I borrow $1?" and stuff like that. And then I ran the store in the back where we sold candy bars and cigarettes and razor blades and whatever. And there was one fireman I didn't get along with, Kenny Athman. He's gone now too. And he was supposed to be the ping pong champ of this fire station. He come up to me one day and he says, "Come on, Schreiber, I'll play you for $1." I said, "Okay." So I played him. I beat him. He come and he says, "Let's play for double or nothing. Worst bet you can take. Sooner or later, you're going to lose." I think I went to 3 or 4 games, double or nothing. I knew I'd never get the money off of him. So in the end, I played him a game and I lost. But they really razzed that guy because he was always picking on me some way or another. You know, I was telling him that I had 7 kids and it cost a lot of money. And he only had 1 kid. He told me that he'd spend as much on his 1 kid as I did on my 7. I didn't believe that, but one day I wouldn't. One day I was at a fire with him, and we were chopping a hole in the roof, and I was straddling the peak of the building, and he was sliding off, and I grabbed him, and I hollered down below, "Somebody get a captain up here." So they brought the ladder over, and he climbed up the ladder, and he helped Kenny climb down the ladder. If I'd have let him go, it was 2.5-story house, and it was winter time, bare ground though. It would have killed him if I think. So then the guys really razzed him. Oh, Schreiber saved your life. Oh, man. And I never did get along with him. But anyway, I went home and told Ma, and I said, Ma, Marcy, it's a good time to move to California, because I was getting sick of the snow and the cold and the shoveling snow. I was afraid to shovel snow. So I said, we're moving to California. Round up the kids. 5 of them got in the car, and Marcy and Mike stayed there, and he's still there. And Linda flew back with the dog. And I had been out. This didn't all happen overnight. I took a trip to California to see about housing, and I ran across this mansion. I thought was 27 feet by 57 feet by 57. And I called Marcy and tried to describe it to her over the phone, but I couldn't. And I said, from the back bedroom to the kitchen, it's about a half a block. She'd have to have roller skates. And when I got up to the roof and looked, it looked like a parking lot. But anyway, it had just what I wanted. It had the master bedroom with a bath. It had another room for the girls, another room for the boys, and I had a guest house hooked on for guests. That's where we put Linda, because she was the oldest, and they could come home at night anytime they wanted to, because I didn't know when they got home. Anyway, the front of this house had metal gates. You remember it, Debbie? And then the house was built like this around this atrium. And it had banana trees, and it had all kinds of flowers. And so you had to walk through that atrium before you got to the front door. And it had a living room, and the guest room was hooked on, but you couldn't go in from the house. You had to go outside to get in there. And it had a cork wall to keep the sound from the house out of there. And I thought we went to heaven. We had 25 fruit trees, and I had oranges, I had apricots, I had lemon, and a lot of nut trees. We had walnuts, and we had grapes. And the kids thought it was great the first couple of weeks to go out and pick an orange. After that, they didn't want them. They wanted to get it at the grocery store. So then I put in a pool. And that was great for a while, but the girls all seen there was no boys around the pool, so they had to go to the beach. Anyway, I liked that house. It was, you just felt like it was a movie star. We paid $27,500. $27,500. Today you can't hardly rent a room for that. And now it's on the block for $300,000. When I sold it, I got $56,000, which I thought was pretty dang good. Pretty near double your money. After leaving a job a hazardous job of firefighting. I took another hazardous job driving the school bus. Because you had to sit there with your back towards them. You can look in the mirror, but that's all. And some of them kids were mean. Kicked one kid off the bus, and I had a seatbelt on, and when he got to me, he spit right in my face. And I tried to get up. I had caught him. I probably would have killed him. But I stretched the seatbelt out 2, 3 sizes bigger. And anyway, I did that for 14 years. And I worked for Roto-Rooter, cleaning out septic tanks. I don't know what happened to me after I quit driving to school. Oh, I got to be 55 years old, and I said, Dolores, Marcy, I have to quit this job because I'm going to kill one of these kids if I stay here. And I quit, and I said, I'm never going to work again. I don't think I have. But then we started raising rabbits. I started with one cage, another cage, and I had 150 rabbits, adults, that were making the babies for me. And I had to set up I got a toilet tank, and I hooked that up to the water line, and you have a hose or a pipe along the edge, and them rabbits learned to drink out of the pipe. You had little buttons there, and they learned how to push the button in and get water. I never had to get water because when the toilet tank went down, it automatically went back up, filled up. And Donna helped me. She would help me feed them, and so she finally called it J&D Rabbitry. And I used to sell them rabbits off every week or so for 29 cents a pound. And they went up north to Hawthorne, I think. But I've never seen rabbit in the butcher shop, or I never ate any. Mine were white. Every once in a while I had a black one. The rabbits. And that was right in Vista. Nobody complained or anything. We also had a rooster there named Carmichael. On that damn thing at 5 o'clock in the morning, it'd crow. I ain't ready to get up at 5. In fact, I don't get up until 11 here. And today I did because the doctor was coming. Well, I played a lot of golf. I bought a motorhome, and Marcy and I used to go traveling. In fact, we parked it over in your yard, and I managed, one of my claim to fame is I golfed at least once in every state in the United States. Also, Hawaii and Alaska. I had this mobile home, and it was I had it re-sided, new roof, Porsche put on one side, and anyway, it was just like a little bungalow. When we moved into the mobile home, then we started enjoying our grandchildren because a lot of the parents would bring their kids over and drop them off, and then I would have them all afternoon. And each one was different, and they all seemed to enjoy themselves there. We used to walk around the park. There were so many kids, and I don't know where we put them all, but we didn't have them all at once, thank God. But I think we have about 58 grandchildren between us as of last count. Most of the time, you, Dustin, I'd say, if you can guess the exact amount I got, I'll give you $10. If you guess off one on each side, I'll give you $5. And as I said, I think if you can guess within 10 on each side, I'll give you $1. God used to stick me every time we played. Yeah, now I have grandchildren, and it's kind of fun to see the grandchildren growing up and having kids and giving me more great grandchildren. I don't know if I have any great ones yet, but anyway, I've got enough to keep me going. Yeah, me and my youngest, Tom. Tom come home with a few stamps one day, and I started helping him, and I got interested that I bought us albums, and I got catalogs that every stamp has a price in this catalog from all over the world. And well, I had quite a collection. And the guy that I was buying my stamps from, he passed away, and he trusted me. I'd go up, he lived up on top of the mountain there. He had a nice home and a grove of avocados. And anyway, when I go up, he had walk-in vaults, and he had drawers of different countries. And he'd pull out a country and he'd say, "Here, take it, and take what you need and pay me for what you take, and bring it back and as soon as you can." So I had every time I went up to him, I paid him for what I took out of the last drawer. I didn't have to buy anything I didn't need, and I could buy everything I needed, and I had quite a collection. I had 35 albums that wide, and I had them on the desk. Well, I had a stamp business where people I had an ad in Lynn's stamp magazine, and I sold stamps through the mail. And Emily would make me up a packet of Christmas seals and other sticky things, and I pretended I put them in with my stamps. And I dropped them in a wastebasket, and then when they came back, a lot of people owed me in change. So I gave Emily all my change that I got, and she thought we were really in business. But I missed that. That was my hobby, and I spent a lot of time on stamps. Marcy got to be a pretty good golfer, and until she had her heart trouble, and then she didn't golf, did she? We didn't travel. So we saw a lot of a lot of the country before she took ill. And she had 3 open heart surgeries. One is plenty. And then on her last day, she woke me up about 8 or 9. She said, I've been having chest pains ever since 3 o'clock in the morning. I've been walking back. I said, why didn't you wake me up? Oh, I didn't want to disturb you. That was the night she died, right? And oh, after my wife died, Marcy, I had a free nights in Laughlin, so I thought I'd go there, and I was sitting at the crap table, and there was a gal next to me, and she says, "Are you going to go to the comedy club?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd like to." And she said, "Can I come with you because I don't want to go in there alone?" I said, "Sure." 35 years old, and me alone, her alone. I said, "Are you alone?" She said, "No, my husband's upstairs sleeping. He didn't want to go." Well, while I was there, the main comedian started picking on me. He pointed his finger at me and said, "What's your name?" I told him. "Where are you from?" I told him. And he said, "Boy, that must be an up-and-coming town, that San Marcos." And then he pointed at the girl and he said, "Is that the best you could pick up?" I said, "Hey, Buster, this is my daughter, I'll have you know, and I don't appreciate your jabs." And I said, "If you give me that microphone for 10 minutes, I said, maybe we can get some laughs out of these people, because you're sure as heck aren't." And then I got up on the stage and went through my little routine. It happened on Father's Day. That's how I got started. My kids are all calling me, "Dad, what do you want for Father's Day? Dad, what do you want for Father's Day?" And I said, if you want to get something, why don't you get something we can all get something out of? So they bought me a new billfold. And that's how I got started on my career as a stand-up comic. Before that, I was scared to open my mouth or scared of talking in front of people. Now it doesn't bother me a bit. In fact, I enjoyed it. I was telling my jokes at a widow and widowers function, and we were sitting around a table, and there were 6 or 8 people there, and I'm telling jokes, and Dolores is one of them. And she's laughing so hard, she says, "I got to go to the bathroom, but don't tell no more jokes till I get back." And then I asked her for a date, and we started going out, and we got married. We were going to just go to Las Vegas, but her daughters planned differently, so we had a big wedding, big reception, big dance, and big expense. Our honeymoon, we went to Kauai in Hawaii and spent a week there, and it was very enjoyable. Dolores and I did a lot of traveling. First 4 years with the car. And I'd stop at all the points of interest that I knew of on our trips. We'd be gone 30 days, and we didn't have no kids. We still had them, but they were grown up. Didn't have no pets, I don't think. and we'd travel for, well, we'd do about 400 or 500 a day. And then we'd stop and get a motel, and go to a restaurant, and we'd come home, play cards or watch television. Dolores and I were square dancing, and we'd go dancing 3 or 4 times a week. We went on cruises and gambling. Once I broke my back, I can't do it. Okay, every couple of weeks, me and Dolores went to the casino, and I had won a few $1,200 and $1,600, which I thought was great. When I went home with more than I came with, I thought it was great. Well, one day Dolores and I went, and she went to the machine that I liked, that I won money on, and she said, I put $20 into that machine, and I am no good, she said. Well, I said I'd just try it anyway. So I sat down and I put $100 bill in. I was playing $3 at a time, and I'd spent about $20, and up come 10, 10, 10. $10,000 I won. And the lady next to me didn't even know I won. And neither did Dolores. So she come over and she said, how you doing? They had put a winner on my machine. And I showed her. She said, how much? I said, $10,000. So they said, well, we can't pay you out here in public. We got to take it as private room. So, okay, so I went, and Dolores came with me, and he said, she can't go in here. I said, yes, she can. She's my wife. And the gal behind the cash register said, how do you want it, check or cash? I said, cash. 10,000 is, I don't know how many $100 bills, but I pulled my jacket over and I had a pocket inside. I said, just put it in here. If you ain't got room, put it in the other side. I buttoned up my jacket, and here's 4 security guards. I don't know if they thought I was going to tip them. All I won was $100 bills. I was going to give them $400 for nothing. So I gave a Dolores $1,000, and then we went out. I wonder if anybody's following us. I wonder if anybody knows you won it. I said, don't worry about it. 4 hours later, we're going home. She said, I wonder if anybody's following us out to the car. I said, don't worry about it. And we had no experiences of any kind, except me when I went to a casino one time before. I sat down next to this rather large lady, and after about 5 minutes, she turned to me and she said, I've been sitting at this machine for 4 hours. And she said, my rear end is asleep. I said, yes, I know, I heard it snoring. And anyway, then that Sunday I went to church, and a lady stood up in front of me, and she had a wedgie. So I pulled it out, and she turned around and slapped me, so I put it back in. Got to have a little humor in this. looking over my life, I think I've had a full life, and I'm 92 years old now, and I am pretty healthy. As far as sickness, I got this dizziness, but nobody seems to care about that. I mean, no doctors ever looked at me, and sometimes they were severe. Twice I thought I was on my way out, but I bounced back, and I take one day at a time, and I really want to thank Dustin for putting this story of my life together and doing such a professional job. How's that?
Perfect.
Here's something I want to say about each one of my children. I used to take the kids through a lot of different things. Like in the wintertime, I'd take them to the hills where they could slide down with their sleds, and in the summertime we went to the beach and or the lake. I mean, it wasn't no beach. My oldest son, Mike, he never did move out to California, and he stayed in Minneapolis as he worked in the hospital in Minneapolis. And when he was small, we took the 400 train to Milwaukee because I hadn't seen my dad in 10 years. In fact, I didn't even know where he was, and here he turns up in Milwaukee, and he's married again. So he had he was there by Marquette University. He had a rooming house for students. So we hopped on a train, and Linda was madder than heck because she couldn't go. And she started saying, "Sure, man and son, man and son." And that's how that started. Anyway, my dad showed us all over Milwaukee, and we had a good time reminiscing. Because Mike was a pretty smart little kid, and I would put him through his paces. At Christmas, Linda always came up with a different gift, one that you would keep all year round. Like she gave us some yard markers that we used to put in our, like windmills that would go around, and they last for a long time after Christmas. And what I'm trying to say is she always gave us a durable present that lasted for years, and it was unique most of the time. And Vince, he is a peach of a guy. If I had to have another son, I would just as soon choose him, because he's always interested in what you're saying. He's not trying to get his 2 cents in. He's listening to what you say. And he's a pleasure to be around. I always said that Debbie was the apple of my eye. And then this guy, this worm, Randy, come along and took her away from me. And Debbie has always been in working with helping people or teaching something or other. She taught school for a long time. She worked at the theater, the Moonlight Theater, with costumes. Her and my wife would make costumes. I remember taking her to Cobo Park, and we were there for Coma Park is a park in St. Paul where they have, it's like a zoo. And they have a place called Monkey Island. They have an island with a whole bunch of monkeys there. And I said, Debbie, it's time we got to go home. And she said, I don't want to go home. I said, all right, I'll leave you here with the monkeys. And finally I talked her into going home. But when Marcy died, Debbie and Randy had me over for supper every night. And Randy is a good cook and a nice guy. I just put that other in for a little humor, because I'm still a comedian at heart. Donna took care of me when I had the flu for 14 days. And she was going to this church, this Christian church, and it was all weird to me. Being a Catholic, I was more sedate. But anyway, they needed a bus driver to take a group of kids to Arizona to a Jesus rally. Oh, Johnny Cash was supposed to be there, and so I said, well, I'll drive the bus. I'm not working. It's summer vacation, and I'd never been there to Arizona. And the old bus, I didn't think we were going to make it out of the yard, but we did. And I paid most of the gas. And one time we stopped, we broke down and they all got around the bus and prayed, and I got back in and turned the key, and away we went. And I told the pastor, I said, I'll take your kids, but I'm a Catholic, and I don't believe in all your hocus pocus. And but I went to every meeting, and before I went home, I was a Christian. Oh yeah, her husband Brad, he worked at Hollandia Dairy, and he got milk over there for free, and he used to bring us milk. We never bought any milk until the company clamped down on and wouldn't give nobody any more free milk. So he's a nice guy. Yeah, Carol Ann, one Christmas I bought her a used car, and I wrapped the key up and gave it to her, and when she opened it, she didn't know what that was for. So I took her over on the balcony and I pointed down on the street. I said, you see that car down there? That's yours. We bought it for you. And then I was teaching her how to drive. She said, well, I got 2 weeks to go before I take my test. So I said, all right, let's go for a ride. And I headed her to Escondido where they take the test. And I said, turn here. And she turned, and we went right up to where the guy was that was giving the test for the license. And she had no time to prepare, and I just got out of the car. He got in and drove her around, and she passed. And she was so excited. She got her license and didn't have to wait 2 more weeks worrying about it. And Joe, my son Joe, he was about 5 or 6 years old, and he wanted to make a tape of him singing Patches. So he was too bashful to sing in front of anybody, so he went into the clothes closet and took him a microphone and was singing, and all of a sudden he stopped, and he opened the door. He said, I can't smell air, and I don't have any more parts. So we got a kick out of that. And Joe went on to be um, a head of the blood division in Reno Hospital, which is a very good job, very well paid. Joe has a beautiful home on the Truckee River. He's about 10 minutes away from work, and he's got everything I think that he needs or would want. His wife is a very nice gal. Her name is Janet, and she is a nurse at the hospital, and she works part-time whenever she feels like it. She works. She is a nurse in pediatrics. And I enjoy going to Joe's because they both are such good hosts, and we also have the casinos right there. Well, my son Tom, he is the youngest. And when we were traveling out to California, we were looking for a motel, and every place we came, it had a sign, no vacancies. And after 4 or 5 no vacancies, Tom says, "What's the matter? Are we vacancies?" And I thought that was kind of funny. And then one time I took him to San Juan Capistrano, and he was sitting there feeding the birds, and we said, "Okay, kids, let's go, we're leaving." Well, we all left except Tom. And we got about 5 miles away from Capistrano, we realized that he wasn't with us. So we had to go back, and the nuns were selling tickets, and she thought I was trying to pull a fast one that I could get in for nothing if I gave her that story. And I said, "Well, look, there he is sitting by the fountain there." I said, "I forgot to take him along." Carol is his wife, and she also works, I don't know, she does something about with infants and blood, and I don't know, she travels.